Welcome.
Hello.
Okay. So, how did you find Graal? And when did you start playing?
So, how I found out about Graal was pretty much just exploring the Google Play Store, looking for a RPG game, and it popped up. This was in about 2011. It was around May, I believe. And I've been playing since 2011, and I still play today.
Did you experience any changes after your first year of playing?
Oh yeah, definitely. 2012. That was like the beginning years where it didn't really have that much. It had some stuff, but it didn't have that much. It just had hats. They were just coming out with morphs around that time. You had to figure out everything from the forums. If I remember correctly, you had to go to the forums to see any updates or anything like that. From 2011 and earlier. Late 2011 was when people started, when they started doing the news, I believe. Late 2011, early 2012. Because people were complaining about how when you had on mobile, the forums was super buggy. That's what I remember. And like sometimes the writing wouldn't pop up or it wouldn't load right. And it would be like a black screen most of the time, or it'd be an error message. And so they created the news to make it a lot easier. And they rolled that out and introduced it.
Do you own any items with crazy histories or backstories? If so, then could you share a story?
Well, I do have when I first started, mainly was being a tower. Is my most important item, in my opinion, is my 1K hat from Beg for Mercy Dynasty. And that was, back then, that was in around 2012, 2013, Beg for Mercy was a towering group that would spam 1K hats. And we had about 5-6 branching guilds that would just tower non-stop. And the Beg for Mercy Dynasty was the most prized one because we held every tower for about 6 hours straight. And that's my opinion, my most unique item as one of the last people that still play from that guild. It was a pretty well-known towering guild between 2012 to 2015 before we all disbanded. We never tried to push towards 5Ks or 10Ks because we had so many members that we would do branch guilds, so every member would at least have a 1K hat because we would have about 60, 70, 80 members, and back then only 25 people could get a 1K hat before the new update where you can have 50 people in guilds. So we would branch off different guilds to make sure every single member would get a hat and not feel left out.
Are there any items that you regret not buying from the past? If so, then what were they?
It was the Japanese Nexus. I had about 50,000 Graalits at the time, and at that time I didn't really like that Nexus. But now every time I look back on it, I'm thinking I should have bought everything because that was one of the last good Nexuses. They had a cool looking mount. They had awesome furniture. It was, at the time, I didn't like all the cutesy stuff that they had. They had these little benches that had little cat faces on them and all these little token cats and all this stuff that I didn't like at the time because I didn't really want cutesy stuff, because back then they used to have like darker, scarier hats and items and stuff, and then they started to introduce all these cutesy animal stuff. That's when everything started getting very cutesy in Graal. And At the time, I didn't really like that. But yeah, that's the main thing that I didn't want back then. And that's what I regret, because they had some cool stuff now that I think about it. And that's the main thing I regret never getting, is any of the stuff from there.
In what year did you feel as if the good times were gone and Graal was no longer the same game as you remember, and why?
As I said earlier, I was a huge tower. I would tower with mini guilds and all that, fighting against Maphesy, Chain of Memories, all these big guilds for towers. And when the game was starting to slowly descend and become distant memory, was when they got rid of the York Tower, the tower all the way to the bottom right corner, where you had to swim through water to get to. After they got that, when Maphesy took over, left, that's when it started to go downhill. And just my normal game style was towering was starting to die out. They took York Tower, then they took Snow Tower in Snowtown. And that's when I felt like that was in 2016, I believe. It kind of sucked because York Tower was just always there. I used to go there all the time, not when I was towering too, just to say what's up, because Maphesy and Beg for Mercy, we had a pretty good alliance at the time. And we wouldn't mess with them and they wouldn't mess with us, and I would just go over there, say what's up. With the way Graal is going right now, I don't really see a future where they changed so much, since now it's all about money. And you noticed like how old school morphs used to be, like big, bulking. Nowadays morphs are just tiny, cutesy little things that don't do anything, and it's unoriginal. It's a bunny. Near end of 2014 was when morphs started getting super small and just be regular animals in our world, like an otter or a bunny or a little bear cub or something. It changed. A lot of things have changed, like farming, bugs, loot.
If you could go back in time, then what would you change?
If I could go back in time, I would probably ask Zov to change his admin ways of people to be an admin. Because when he implemented the way to become an admin, you had to never be banned, and you had to be a certain age, and you had to have background in graphic design, computing design, and all that. Now, admins can be ages 14 and up, and they don't need really any much background like they used to. So, I would ask him to make sure he's kept it implemented after he left, because when he left, that's when everything went downhill. Emogun left, Fury left, there was a few other admins that were like pretty much carrying Graal from 2011 to 2014, and then when Zov left, they left, and new admins came in, and that's when Graal went downhill to me, is when those guys left. I would change the way admins can be implemented, like people could be an admin. That's what I would change, or try to change. Try to make it stay the same before Zov left.
What motivates you to keep playing Graal?
What motivates me to keep playing Graal is the hope that it can be what it used to be, where somebody or some type of new ownership can happen where they would bring it back to the old ways, like the old days of Graal, where it's not all about money and more about the fun gameplay that it had. Graal had a uniqueness where you could do pretty much anything you wanted. You could still do it, but it's not as expansive as it used to be, where they've limited a lot of stuff. But I do hope and still play, because I believe that it will happen after they see the state it is in right now, but I doubt it for now. I stopped towering about 2015, and I joined a lot of towering guilds, military guilds, and made a lot of good friends there. I still talk to them on Discord, still play with them on other games, still play Graal with them a few times when they're on. They come on fairly often. There's a few still on, but only about 2 that I know of still play, S-Girl and Red Star, and those are the only 2 that I can really think of that still play. Out of all the 80 people that was from Beg for Mercy, those are the only 2 that I think that still play.
How do you view the game today? What recent changes do you like or dislike? And why?
How do I view it? It's become stale. Like, nobody knows what to do anymore. People just stand there. That's all I see is... That's pretty much what I see wherever I go. People just standing there. Nobody catching bugs, nobody looting like they used to. You remember how the old days where you would see like 40, 50 people in just the river just looting non-stop. I don't even see that anymore. It's just like nobody knows what to do anymore. It's just people standing there. No, even towering guilds. I go look at towering guilds and all the members are just standing there because nobody takes towers anymore. Nobody fights for them because there's no point. It's not competitive like it used to be. And that's what I dislike, is they're not doing enough stuff to make the game feel fresh. What I do like is they are implementing some new mechanics that weren't there before, like pets. That's an awesome idea, but if they made it cheaper, it would be the best. I like that idea. The boots from Destiny was one of my favorite things, because you'd see people floating in the air or going backwards, different controls. It was fun. They implemented new stuff, but that's not enough. They just make one update, like one big new update, and that's all they do. And then they just wait for months and months on end, wait for a holiday, and then shove something out. And that just is fun for like a few days, and then those events are gone. Nexus, Revolution, they keep doing the same thing over and over for Halloween. Like the maze, it's the same over and over. It's the same. Everything's the same. You do the exact same thing, fall through the hut, go through the house, open the chest. I kind of liked the old graphics better than the new graphics. Yeah, the new graphics look nice, but the old graphics had a little charm to it. I liked it more because it didn't look so cartoony, if you get what I mean. It had more of a gritty look to it, where it felt like a old school RPG, like those classic Nintendo games. Like, it kind of looked like that. Now it looks super polished and glossy, and not like it used to be. Like, I get it. It's just my opinion. That's what I like. Others might like the new look, but I felt like the old look looked a little better. Maybe a little bit, but that's what I liked. No, it actually looked like the old Game Boy games, now that I think about it.
What items would you want to see in the nearby future?
It could be any item, I don't really mind. It needs to make the game fresh. It could be an item, an update to the game that'll make it different. What I do want in them is to bring back the old towering system, take away the limit on how many bugs or loot you can tame, because a lot of people left was because of how limiting they made the game. And I don't say an item would really be good. I feel like they need to bring back a lot of the things that made Graal. And that's what I want to see in the nearby future, is them to implement stuff that they used to have before they restricted so many things that made the game feel bland. I know it's different from the question, but that's what I would like to see in the future. And item-wise, they need to implement something that can be different. Like, they could probably add like a house that only, or like a fort for guilds, like not like a guild house, but a fort that guild members can just all run into, like how Graal Old West, they have when guilds would get a certain amount of hours, they would have their own guild fort where people can go and see it, or like a base. I would kind of like that, so people will know about the guilds that came before, that pretty much were the top of the leaderboards, and people would notice. That's pretty much what I think. Do something that can like memorialize characters or people or groups within the game, because that made the game what it was.
Well, that concludes the ending of this interview. Thanks for joining, and good night.
Alright, man. See you next time.